Hi, this is A New Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine the strategic issues bedeviling Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer practical suggestions on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. Today's episode promises to be engaging and exciting. My guest is already here to assist me in doing justice and also give depth and clarity to the topic of our discourse. As always, it's going to be evidence-driven, honest, bold, and a no-holds-barred conversation. So get ready as we begin in earnest. And now, let's get on with it. The topic today is the 2023 presidential elections, a post-mortem. The February 25th presidential elections have come and gone, but its aftermath leaves a terrible sour taste in the mouth of most Nigerians. An election that promised much ended up as a great anticlimax. The oft-repeated promise by the top echelons of the electoral management body, INEC, to conduct the elections using the newly introduced technology BVAS, that is Bimodal Voters Accreditation System for voter accreditation, failed in many polling units across the nation. Even worse, the critical transmission or transfer of election results from the over 176,000 polling units directly via instant upload to the INEC iRev portal failed for the presidential polls, while it worked seamlessly, at least in most cases, for the National Assembly elections. With all this, party agents raised strident objections as the collation were ongoing at the National Collation Center, Abuja. But the INEC chair, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, shut this down and instead hurried the process to its conclusion with the declaration of a winner under the cover of darkness at 4:10 a.m., while most Nigerians and observers were sound asleep. Since the declaration and presentation of certificate of return to the president-elect and vice president-elect, an eerie silence enveloped the land. Instead of the rapturous jubilations synonymous with such momentous events in times past, it was shock and stupefaction across the length and breadth of Nigeria. The three leading co-contestants for the presidency have since rejected the elections and the process leading to the declaration as a farce and a rape of democracy, using their words. They have also promised to proceed to the courts while appealing to their millions of supporters to remain peaceful and law-abiding. Now, what does this situation portend for the nation? Can the president-elect indeed govern in this situation where the legitimacy of his government is being questioned by even most Nigerians? What is the future of democracy and good governance in Nigeria? These are some of the issues we're examining today. We'll take this short break, and when we return, we'll get right into the conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back from that short break. My guest today is Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is Deputy Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies, Bayes University, Abuja. Prof, good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
It's a pleasure.
Same here.
As always. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's get right into the conversation, Prof. You heard from my introduction. Yeah. What is your general assessment of the February 25th presidential elections? What's your general assessment?
Oh, my assessment is mixed. One of gratification that we'll be able to conduct another election, in addition to the previous ones we have conducted, which means that we're making progress at the level of, meeting our schedules, our electoral schedules, or meeting our calendar, electoral calendar. But again, slightly let down, by the imperfections of the election. But the only solace I'm going to take is that election is a very complicated, complex affair, which hardly can register above average success anywhere in the world. That's my solace, really.
Have you seen anywhere in the world where declaration of a winner was made when people were sleeping?
Well, I think...
And is it a big deal anyway?
Yeah, well, good. I like the sense of perspective you have given to it. Somehow, we may not necessarily impute motives into it. My sense is that the electoral body wanted to continue the process without interrupting it, because of the fall of the night, and of course we have seen it in the past where declarations were made, at the wee hours of the day, in some presidential election we have had it in the past, It may not be enough to impute motives, because there may not have been any market difference if they had waited and if they had done it maybe 12 noon the day after or 4 p.m. the day after, But again, critics might begin to wonder that it was rather hasty, but those who are trying to safeguard democracy again may also counter-argue that it was probably an attempt to conclude it in good time to prevent mischief makers, from interrupting it through litigations, through court actions, ex parte motions, preventing the electoral body from continuing with the release of the result. Sometimes when you have witnessed some terrible things in the past, you become much more anxious. You do not want it to happen. You probably are on edge. You become paranoid such that you don't want those things to happen. It happened in the June 12th presidential election saga, where the military did not only stop the election, but we had members of the civil society going to court, Association for Better Nigeria, and getting ex parte motion, preventing INEC from releasing it. And of course, it set the country downwards, almost affected the corporate existence of the country because there was long period of anxiety afterwards.
Various party agents, of the major parties raised objections to some of these collations, that INEC did not follow the laid down procedures. That is one. In the Electoral Act, number two was that some of the results, as been announced, were different, markedly different from what was on the INEC, the IREV, the INEC portal. So, and the Electoral Act, I'm not too sure now of the particular section, gave INEC the latitude to actually, pause the announcements, do a check,
and do some investigation,
do a proper evaluation. 7 days, 14 days, as the case may be. So, I come back to you, Prof, and you alluded to it that maybe INEC wanted to speed up the process so that they will not give room to mischief makers, fifth columnists, as the case may be. And I love the example of the 1993 June 12 saga, Alpha Nzeribe's group, the fictitious, group and all of that. So, but the point is, do you sacrifice a transparent process? Do you sacrifice a process that is seen, not just that you claim the process is okay, that it must be seen by all to be transparent, to have met minimum standard, of equity, of justice, assuage the fears, at least dampen the anxiety of these party agents, so that if you take 1 day off to do this in-house cleaning exercise and then come back and say, okay, gentlemen, we've done this. At this point, we have to still, we don't think there's a substantial reason for to, stop this. We'll go ahead, but if you still don't feel satisfied, then go to court. But to just speed up the process and then do all of this in this tardy manner, in my own opinion, announce a winner in the wee hours, it has raised so many, it has given room to so many dark motives being imputed. What do you think?
Yes, I understand. I see your concern, and I appreciate the positions that you have put together. But we also have to be able to discern. Discern in the sense that those who are supportive of the election outcome, will probably not see it from the way you and that you are probably seeing it. They're probably seeing, I've had arguments that this is the best election we've had in the history of this country on account of the pleasant surprises that came up in different places. People who you think have stronghold in some sections have lost the election. Officials who you thought will have won on account of their contemporary influence have lost. We have seen, interesting outcomes. So because of that, it lends credence to the credibility of the polls, So whether or not their tardiness, yes, it's okay for us to establish it, to identify it, but it's not enough to detract from the credibility of the election. So that's one angle to it. The other angle to it is to identify some of the many downsides that you have said. Many downsides like our inability to perfect the use of electronic system, You know, IREF is supposed to be instantaneous, you know, such that after the election, after the polling, the results have been registered from ECA8, you know, then of course it is transmitted, uploaded onto the IREF so that the world can see it. You know, but of course we fail in that regard. INEC failed in that regard, as specified by its regulation. But I've had arguments from INEC chairman.
Let me throw this in right quick. You know, speaking about cultural practices in advanced democracies compared to us in the last 24 years, you know, the question becomes germane. That is, have we matured? Have we made significant progress? Because the reason why this question becomes pertinent is that we see elections here, democracy or politics here, as do or die, as war, all-out war. But what actually bothers me and informed citizens like yourself is that the weakness of our institutions, because these are the bulwarks, these are safeguards, the guardrails that ensure individuals aren't able to game the system, as it were. So what we have, a preponderance of what we experienced in this election is a situation where it would appear as if individuals or a group of individuals are able to beat the system, are able to subvert the electoral process to suit themselves. So the question is, Prof, have you seen in the last 24 years a deepening of democratic ethos?
Yeah, excellent, you know, question, no doubt. And of course, you are very exhaustive in identifying some of the problems, you know, bedeviling us, you know. We are yet to mature in politics, right? Our democracy is yet to mature as well because of some deep-seated attitudinal deficiencies, you know, or attitudinal imperfections. And of course, it's rubbing out on the process because the process is not inanimate, the process is animate, such that it requires to conduct it. And the human beings who are interacting with the process, you know, are sort of prebendal, you know, they are sort of materially inclined, equating politics with business, thinking that politics is an avenue for survival rather than an avenue for service. They see politics simply as an avenue for raw interest, for the manifestation or the furtherance of self-interest, self-aggrandizement. As a result of that, they are not able to be altruistic, you know, and that's why they are die-hearted about winning. You know, there's no option for them. It's just winning all the way. If they don't win, then they don't accept the result. They rather want to destroy the system. We can see how the politics is already very heated up, you know, and only God knows how it's going to continue, you know. And of course, we have seen how it has led us in the past when politicians heated up the polity and ended up disrupting the entire democratic process. Is it the kind of thing we want? I'm not sure that's what we want. You know, much as we say that the imperfections are irritating, they are frustrating, they are painful for those who lost, but we have to also realize that, you know, our focus needs to be on the bigger picture. The bigger picture of looking at the nation as a whole, you know, the nation, our reputation in the internet, in the community of nations, and that we still have a future. You know, can we really imagine that if we do not win today, we can win tomorrow, possibly? It takes grace, it takes strength of virtuous character to be able to come to this realization. But we have not too many politicians in this matrix, you know, who can think along this line. That remains our being. In other climes, you know, you see people who get into political office, and no sooner had they got there, they will quit. They say they are going to their business. You know, they want to go and make money because they do not see politics as a money-making avenue. We have seen instances where public officials in some foreign countries mistakenly spend some public fund for some mundane things, mundane in their own context, and they get into trouble. But here, of course, people get into government and people are celebrating on account of a high expectation that in another few months they're going to become millionaires. And we see it.
Prof, we'll take this short break and then we'll continue. We'll take this short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with our interview with Prof. Sadeni. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Prof, before we went on that short break, you were talking about the cultural practices, the way our I actually don't want to say democracy because I'm not sure, we can call what we practice here democracy. The way our politics, is being played, we have, you explained briefly earlier on. What can we do, Prof? Or before I even ask what can we do as your maybe one or two recommendations, are we matured for democracy? Because if you consider the colossal sum that was given to INEC to conduct these elections and the outcomes, it's not commensurate. It has left a sour taste in the mouths of many Nigerians. So my two questions, if you can take them in 2-3 minutes. Are we matured for democracy? And what will be your recommendations going forward to making this system, to improving what we have on our hands? Because this definitely does not bode well for Nigeria.
Yeah, it's a continuing conversation, really, whether we're matured for democracy. But the counter question we can ask is that if we're not matured for democracy,
what's the alternative?
There was the alternative. Because we're a multi-ethnic, plural, fragile entity, a nation of so many multiple identities, multiple classifiers and divides,
I like divide that you actually used,
So what do we do in the circumstance? Democracy is integrative, it's inclusive, it's representational.
If it is done properly.
Yeah, if it is done properly. And because we have this kind of huge nation, plural nation, multiple nations within a nation state. If we have that kind of arrangement, then the option to adopt governance option is actually democracy.
Very true.
To bring in people, different people.
Inclusivity.
Inclusivity. So all we need to do is just to continue to strengthen the mechanism, to give voice to different people. But I agree with you that we might probably need to tweak the governance system. The American presidential system that we're trying to parrot hook, line, and sinker is probably looking too expensive for us because it talks about winner takes all.
Absolutely.
Winner takes all. And because of the winner takes all again, that's why people are largely vociferous in insisting on winning, because they know that if they lose, they are going to be in the lodge for a long time to come, So they don't want to accept it. They want to go for broke, ensuring that they actually win. So that's the question, really. So how do we probably embark on some level of proportional representation to accommodate those who are probably lost, and find a way of assuaging them? Or should we be thinking about, reducing the cost of democratic experiment, whereby we have a unicameral legislature as against the bicameral legislature? Because, again, you want to say that the legislature, is a springboard around which democratic experiment rotates. It's very, very important for us to underline that. We have to have it. But what type of representation should we have? Is it the one that is dual? Is it bicameral or unicameral? That's very important. Then the cost of doing election.
Should the members of the sorry, Prof. Should the members of the legislature, should they be, because now it's full time, and they are paid all sort of.
That's right.
Should it be part time? As it
that's
is done elsewhere.
That's another question that we can ask.
But
again, you have to look at the executive too.
Exactly.
Very expensive.
Very expensive.
The legislature will see their expenses. In the executive, you probably may not even see.
Oh, absolutely.
Gas might even be much because they spend the bulk of the money. And they are not. It's not in the open for us to see, like the legislature that we keep talking about. Then what about the cost of doing election? 400 billion every 4 years. That's humongous amount of money. Sometimes we're even borrowing this money. We don't pay back. And again, what about the question of corruption? It is even possible that what we're spending 400 billion, maybe 150 billion could have done it if we were prudent and transparent and accountable. So there are so many issues to look at. The question of transparency, accountability. We have to begin to look at these things from a holistic point of view. But fundamental to this is is leadership. We need a courageous leader who can come in as a hero, who can inspire confidence, galvanize us, not through pronouncement.
By example. Leadership by example. Setting the right example.
Setting the right and insisting
that the right things be done.
Who will be inflexible, who will be impervious to the pressure taxes of the political class, of the citizens who think that we should continue the primordial reward, compensatory system, which is actually our bane. So these are the things that we have to look at. But I'm confident, really, that it is not impossible for us to have that kind of leader. We have had flashes of them. In some agencies, in some organizations in the past.
Throw in that if we can de-incentivize political offices in Nigeria. That's the summary of everything that you said, and I agree with you.
De-incentivize it, yes.
You know, because part of the reason why people scramble for political, because they know they see the razzmatazz,
That's right.
the long convoys, people are worshipping you as a governor, you are like an emperor. The president is like a small god, If we can remove all of that,
that's right.
So that people only have interest in serving,
that's right,
will come to politics.
And another route is to strengthen our economy.
Absolutely.
Strengthen our economy.
People have something good to do. They don't have time for brilliance. This is a continuing conversation. The governorship elections are coming up. I'm sure we'll come back and have a look at that. Prof, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Nice seeing you again. And I'm sure we'll come back and review the governorship elections soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's the end of the interview segment. We'll take this short break, and when I come back, I'll give my closing statements. Please stay with me. Welcome back, and here are my closing statements. The presidential elections of February 25th were, to say the least, a charade and a great travesty of the word democracy. Democracy entails the freedom of the people to choose their leaders in a free, transparent, and fair process. The process must be devoid of any manipulation, interference, or tampering whatsoever. What transpired on the 25th of February was everything but any of the above. I cannot at this time get into much hair splitting, as the issues are already before the courts for adjudication. But I have 4 observations or questions for INEC and the generality of Nigerians. Number 1, the INEC register indicates about 94 million Nigerians are registered to vote. Of this, 87 million collected their PVCs, while during the elections, only about 25 million Nigerians participated. But more fundamental, just about 8.8 million Nigerians elected the winner, who was declared president-elect. Now, is this truly representative democracy? Can just about 4% of the entire population of 215 million Nigerians choose a president that is acceptable to all and is deemed representative of the wishes of the majority of the people? Even if we opt to consider the total number of registered voters with PVCs, that is 87 million, rather than the total number, the total population of Nigerians, the percentage of those who elected the president-elect is still just about 10%. Is 10% a significant number of the wishes of the majority of Nigerians with PVCs to elect a president for us? Second question, democracy ensures that the citizens are able to change their government due to dissatisfaction with its performance. However, the INEC declaration will seem to suggest that Nigerians are actually happy with the performance of the ruling party in the last 8 years. That is, the killings from bandits, kidnappers, terrorists, insurgents, and so on. There are about 3 million Nigerians living in IDPs are saying they're happy. The unimaginable mass poverty and excruciating sufferings across the nation, months-long university shutdowns, hyperinflation, fuel and naira scarcity, etc., etc. So, in essence, the outcome of the results would suggest that Nigerians are saying we want more of the same. Is this so? Third question, the about 355 billion or about 500 million US dollars spent by INEC on these elections. Is this the best use of such a humongous sum? With the terrible state of our social infrastructure, mass poverty, and the general unemployment, couldn't we have used this sum for this rather than, the elections we just witnessed? And last question, are we really matured for democracy as Nigerians? While democracy isn't perfect, yet it can only work when the key actors in the entire process are honest, honorable, and patriotic citizens. That is, they choose to put the interest of the country above every other interest. I am fairly acquainted with our political process in Nigeria. My candid verdict is that it is a system that is totally corrupt and terribly rigged against patriotic citizens, either aspiring for office or emerging victorious when they do so. Now, these 4 observations or questions are intended to prick our collective consciences, if we still have any left. We shall interrogate this deeper in subsequent episodes. Remember, change requires action, and positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible. And those are my closing thoughts. Now, that's the program for today. Remember to follow me on my different social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this particular video and the other ones that are there. Drop your comments also. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.